Judging people's top 4 favorite movies.
Round 1.
For the first matchup, we have a battle of the dad movie builds. The first one is this level 7 art connoisseur dad build submitted by Missy Harrison on behalf of Jacob O'Hara. He's running The Godfather, 8.5, Lawrence of Arabia, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And their opponent is a level 5 blockbuster dad build submitted by HNO Productions. They've got Terminator 2, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Goodfellas. And okay, sure, these are both great builds if you're just trying to play for fun. I mean, if this tournament was about having a good time, then everyone would be a winner. But this is competitive ranked gameplay. No matter which movies you like, you're gonna get relentlessly attacked by a whole host of aggressive enemies. We're talking film snobs, anti-intellectuals, angry fans, you name it. So the winner of this tournament will be whichever players are the most capable of soloing a wide variety of insufferable losers. And yeah, unfortunately, this blockbuster dad build is gonna have some serious problems against film snob enemies. I mean, you could run a legendary Scorsese item, you could run arguably the best James Cameron item in the entire game, you could even have 2 OP Indiana Jones items. Even with this stacked of a loadout, it's still not going to be enough to satisfy the gatekeeping basement dwellers and film snobs. I mean, unless you have the right specialty items to directly counter them, they're just going to keep on spamming you with the idiot attack. Now compare that to this art connoisseur dad build. Yeah, it has the same core stats and perks that you're going to get from any other dad build, but it also has the added benefit of equipping Lawrence of Arabia and Fellini's 8.5. This gives them some serious core defenses against film snob enemies. Just for that alone, the art connoisseur dad build gets the win and advances to round 2. So for the next matchup, we have an underdog versus one of the biggest favorites to win the entire tournament. The first contender is a level 4 casual build submitted by Enthusiasm 360. They've got Avengers Infinity War, Shawshank Redemption, 12 Angry Men, and Interstellar. And basically the strategy for casual builds is to equip 4 of the most popular items in the game. It's actually a pretty underrated strategy. In this case, they've actually got an extremely versatile build. They're pumping up their nerd stats with Avengers Infinity War. They've got a Sidney Lumet classic. They've got one of the most popular Nolan items in the entire game, and they're rounding off their build with Shawshank Redemption. This is actually a really solid top 4 loadout. However, unfortunately for them, they're going up against a level 8 pay-to-win build submitted by MAPJ Studios. I mean, this is basically just an unfair matchup. They've got Spirited Away, one of the greatest animated movies ever made, Parasite, arguably the greatest movie of the 21st century, Seven Samurai, arguably the greatest movie of the 20th century, and Amadeus, a legendary item about arguably the greatest musician in history. They're basically just stacking their build with the highest rated items in the game. So yeah, this pay-to-win build is just going to wipe the floor with this casual build. Pay-to-win advances to round 2. Alright, the next matchup is between an extreme edgelord build and a wholesome build. So starting off with this level 9 extreme edgelord build submitted by Vincent Bernier. I mean, this is just one of the most maxed out edgelord builds I've ever seen. They've got Sallow, a movie so disturbing that even if you just describe what it's about, you might get booted from the servers. They've also got Grizzly Man. It's this documentary about a guy who gets mauled by a grizzly bear. I mean, you just know this build is crazy when Paul Schrader's First Reformed is one of the least edgy items in their build. I will say the main benefit of running an extreme edgelord build is that you have some absolutely insane intimidation abilities. I mean, like a lot of lower level enemies are not even going to bother attacking you just because they're going to be so scared of you. And their opponent is using pretty much the exact opposite strategy. It's this level 6 wholesome build submitted by Leonardo Lopez. They've got 2 of the most entertaining animated items in the entire game with Toy Story and Shrek. But then they've also got Who Framed Roger Rabbit and also a Charlie Chaplin classic, The Great Dictator. This is actually a pretty overpowered build because yeah, it is primarily geared towards maxing out the happiness stat, but at the same time, it also does have some pretty decent film history stats. I gotta say, this is a super close matchup because the extreme edgelord build is definitely going to be better at mowing down common trash mobs, but I'd say that the wholesome build is probably going to be stronger in the late game. It has overall stronger stats. These are both really solid builds, but the wholesome build is going to get the win here and advance on to round 2. Next up, we have two of my personal favorite builds. The first one is a level 5 red flag build submitted by Slime 5 Film. They've got The Social Network, a movie about a borderline antisocial tech bro who becomes a billionaire. They've got Marty Supreme, a movie about a narcissist who pretty much uses and manipulates every person he knows. And they've got Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, a movie about a manic pixie dream girl. Now, is it actually a red flag to like these movies? Absolutely not. These are all incredible movies. But at the same time, is that going to stop insufferable Puritan enemies from spamming the toxic attack against you? No, it's not. Don't get me wrong, overall, this is a pretty stacked build. You've even got Memento in the 4 slot. It's one of the best Christopher Nolan items. I'm just saying though, it is kind of vulnerable to being attacked by one of the most annoying enemies in the game. Anyway, they're facing off against a level 7 lesbian cinephile build submitted by Jillian Hahn. And this build is absolutely stacked. They've got Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Mulholland Drive, Carol, and Inglourious Basterds. I mean, their arsenal of legendary items is just insane. They've got arguably David Lynch's best movie. They've got one of the best French movies of the 21st century. And it's got one of Tarantino's best movies. And okay, sure, when 3 out of the 4 items in your build are lesbian romance movies, unfortunately this means you're gonna get attacked by a bunch of low IQ culture warrior enemies. And these are just some of the dumbest yet most aggressive enemies in the entire game. But let's be real, these enemies have an extremely low film knowledge stat, so as long as you're not running any common franchise items like Marvel or Star Wars, for example, they're not even going to know what you're running. You can pretty much just stealth right past them. Plus, with Inglourious Basterds in the 4 slot, this build actually has some really solid versatility. You could just use that to counter any enemy who likes to spam the pretentious attack. So yeah, these are both really strong contenders, but the lesbian cinephile build wins and advances on to round 2. So for the next matchup, we have another underdog versus a high-ranked contender. And first up is this level 4 Film Bro build submitted by NotDev4. And they've got 2 legendary David Fincher items with Fight Club and 7. They've got an epic Christopher Nolan item with The Prestige, and they've also got Whiplash. And okay, Whiplash is a really good item, but the only problem with having it in your build is that it makes you weak against this really specific rare enemy type. I'm talking about nitpicky jazz musicians. I mean, like, they are an extremely rare enemy type, but if you have Whiplash in your build, they can absolutely no-diff you. Meanwhile, the other contender is a level 9 obscure movie expert build submitted by James Whale Bakesale. They're running Calendar. It's this 1993 Canadian-Armenian indie movie. They've got Elephant. It's this 1989 Northern Ireland short film about the Troubles. They've got Hamodi, a 1987 Turkish remake of E.T., and they've also got The Tenant, which that's probably the most well-known movie in their loadout. And yeah, this build is absolutely insane because 99% of the enemies in the game simply have no idea how to attack you. If you're running this build, you have the element of surprise going into almost every single fight. I mean, you can pretty much just mow down 99% of enemies with 0 difficulty. So yeah, nothing against this Film Bro build. It's a pretty solid build. This is just kind of an unfair matchup. The obscure movie expert build is going to win and advance on to round 2. So the next matchup is a battle between 2 generations, and the first contender is this level 7 boomer nostalgia build submitted by CJ Sports. They've got Talking Heads Stop Making Sense, and this is going to boost their music connoisseur stats. They've got Dog Day Afternoon, a pretty insane legendary item that has one of the best acting performances of all time. Then they've got Monty Python and the Holy Grail, another extremely OP item, because it boosts both your comedy stats and your Arthurian legend stats. Oh yeah, and in their 4 slot, they have The Thing, which is probably the best sci-fi horror item in the entire game. Normally, boomer nostalgia builds aren't even that good, but in this case, this is probably the most min-max boomer nostalgia build I've ever seen. This loadout is absolutely insane. Anyway, their opponent is a level 5 millennial build submitted by Oscar. And basically the strategy of this build is to run a bunch of popular, epic, and legendary items from the 2000s and the 2010s. They've got Interstellar, There Will Be Blood, La La Land, and Parasite. And don't get me wrong, it's a solid build. Those are some great items, but it just falls a little bit short when you compare it to the specialty stats that you get from the boomer nostalgia build. I mean, they've got a high music connoisseur stat and a high Arthurian legend stat. I mean, how could you really compete with that? The boomer nostalgia build is going to win and advance on to round 2. The next matchup is a battle between two fantasy enthusiasts. The first one is a level 7 fantasy romance connoisseur build submitted by Ray Delwell on behalf of his girlfriend. So in her first 3 slots, she equipped Practical Magic, About Time, and Ever After. It's a pretty straightforward strategy. She's pretty much just maxing out her fantasy stats and her romance stats at the same time. But then in her 4th slot, she equipped Barbie of Swan Lake. I mean, that is just an absolute power play. It's this movie based on Tchaikovsky's ballet Swan Lake, except it's an animated Barbie movie. And this just gives her access to some insane combo attacks and special moves. And her opponent is a level 9 Tolkien Scholar build submitted by TD Enterpriser. And yeah, basically the strategy for this build is to just dump 100% of your points into Middle-earth lore stats. They've got Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and Return of the King, all 3 extended editions. And they've got the Hobbit M4 fan edit. And to be fair, the Lord of the Rings movies are the best fantasy items in the entire game, but investing your entire loadout into it is just not a viable strategy. I mean, I do respect the commitment. Their build consists entirely of extended cuts and fan edits of Middle-earth movies, but it's just not going to be that effective in competitive ranked gameplay. So yeah, the fantasy romance connoisseur absolutely no-diffs the Tolkien Scholar and advances on to round 2. And now we're at the final matchup of round 1. And first up, we got a level 7 Brain Rot build submitted by HMD BRMD. They've got Ice Cube's War of the Worlds, Morbius, and Cats. Those are 3 of the most popular legendary Brain Rot items in the entire game. And then in their 4th slot, they equip the Godfather. They're basically just trying to hedge their bets by equipping 3 Brain Rot items, but then one of the greatest movies of all time to balance things out. And okay, sure, normally it is a good thing to diversify your build and have some variety, but with Brain Rot builds in particular, they're really only effective if you just go all in on Brain Rot movies, and you have to equip them unironically. If you just go all in on the Brain Rot strategy and they're genuinely your favorite movies, that's actually a really good strategy because that's how you unlock maxed out happiness stats. However, in this case, this is basically just a Godfather build with some ironic Brain Rot items on the side. And I mean, it can be an effective strategy in certain situations, but for the most part, it's kind of just a gimmicky stealth build. It's probably not going to work that well in the mid to late game. Now let's compare that to their opponent. It's this level 4 Cinephile build submitted by Vero Film Awards. And this is a classic early game Cinephile build. They have Back to the Future and Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I mean, these are staple items that you're going to see in a lot of casual builds. But then on top of that, they also have Chungking Express. And once you equip a legendary Wong Kar-wai item, you automatically unlock the Cinephile build. Plus in their 4th slot, they have Look Back. It's this rare anime item. I mean, this build just has really strong stats across the board. And another thing worth mentioning, if you have Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, you kind of get a lot of the same benefits that you would get from a Brain Rot build. I mean, this movie is absolutely stacked with goofy quotes that you can add into your arsenal.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
So yeah, the Cinephile build wins and advances to the next round.
Round 2.
The first matchup in round 2 is going to be the early game Cinephile build versus the higher level lesbian Cinephile build. And I would say that this early game Cinephile build does have a little bit more overall versatility. I mean, it has 2 blockbuster items, a rare anime item, and a legendary Wong Kar-wai classic. But I would say that the lesbian Cinephile build makes up for it by having some absolutely insane combo attacks. For example, the Mulholland Bastards combo attack and the Inglorious Lady on Fire combo attack. These are just some absolutely cracked moves to have in your arsenal. It's a close matchup, but the lesbian Cinephile build gets the W and advances to round 3. Next up, we have the Art Connoisseur Dad build versus the Obscure Movie Expert build. And okay, sure, this Art Connoisseur Dad build does have some pretty insane core stats, but this Obscure Movie Expert build is basically like playing on cheat codes. Just has some absolutely broken stealth abilities. So the Obscure Movie Expert build is going to get the W here and advance on to round 3. The next matchup is the Wholesome build versus the Fantasy Romance Connoisseur build. On the one hand, this Wholesome build is more of a jack of all trades versatile build, but on the other hand, the Fantasy Romance Connoisseur build is more niche, but it also has more OP special abilities. For example, just from having Barbie of Swan Lake in the 4th slot, they're boosting their classical music stat and also gaining the PS2 graphics perk. So because of those niche special abilities, the Fantasy Romance Connoisseur build is going to pull off the upset and advance to round 3. And for the last matchup in round 2, we have the Boomer Nostalgia build versus the Pay to Win build. And both of these builds are running a pretty similar strategy. It's basically just running 4 extremely OP items. The only real difference maker here is that the Boomer Nostalgia build is focusing mainly on powerful items from the 70s and 80s, whereas the Pay to Win build is covering most of cinema history. When it comes down to the late game, that's going to be the big difference maker. So the Pay to Win build gets the W and advances to the next round.
Round 3.
Now we're in the final 4. The winners of this round will advance on to the championship. So for our first matchup, we have the Lesbian Cinephile build versus the Pay to Win build. And the Lesbian Cinephile build has been on an absolutely dominant run so far, but now it's being put to the test against the betting favorite to win the entire tournament. And this is where this Lesbian Cinephile build's biggest weakness is about to be exposed. All 4 of their items are from the 21st century. It's lacking a little bit when it comes to film history stats. Eventually, it's just going to get swarmed by aggressive old head enemies. So for that reason, it's not quite enough to beat the Pay to Win build. So the Pay to Win build is going to get the W and advance to the championship. And the other matchup is the Fantasy Romance Connoisseur versus the Obscure Movie Expert. And so far, the Fantasy Romance Connoisseur has been utilizing Barbie of Swan Lake to just decimate all of their opponents. But this item is actually kind of a double-edged sword, because if you go up against higher level enemies, they can just start hitting you with the product placement attack. So while it was an absolutely legendary run, unfortunately they just ran into one of the best players in the entire game. So the Obscure Movie Expert is going to get the win and advance on to the championship.
Round 4.
We are now in the Letterboxd Esports Championship round. We got a true heavyweight matchup here. On the one hand, we have this Pay to Win build, and this is statistically one of the most overpowered builds in the entire game. On the other hand, we have this Obscure Movie Expert build. It's not the most versatile build. It doesn't have the best stats, but it has an insanely high skill ceiling. This matchup is absolutely insane. It's basically a 50-50 toss-up, and it's going to come down to whichever build is best able to survive against higher level film snob enemies. And the thing with film snob enemies is that no matter how stacked your build is, no matter how good your items are, they're still always going to try to find a way to attack you. The only surefire way to beat higher level film snob enemies is to beat them at their own game. You have to confuse them by running obscure movies that they've never heard of. So for that reason, the Obscure Film Expert build is going to take the victory. Congratulations to James Whale Bake Sale for winning the Letterboxd Esports Championship. Check out this video right here to see a ranking of the most insufferable enemy types in the game.